Hey, what's up, everybody? You're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. My name is Andrew Davis, and no sponsors or anything like that because we're about to have a very adult, hopefully eye-opening conversation, and we are going to be talking about disabilities in comics, how they're perceived. Obviously, I have a disability. I think my guest, not to out you, but I think you
Yeah.
also have a disability. Not to throw you into the middle of the fire, but I
Yeah.
think it is important to acknowledge and hopefully, obviously we're going to have an adult conversation, and I'm hoping everybody who's watching this, seeing this is going to pay attention. And honestly, I would love everybody else's thoughts on this and comment on it and all that fun stuff, whether live or not live. So
Yeah.
obviously I have with me JS Earls, who's a comic writer, has been doing this forever. Does a book called Pistol Fists. I believe it's a podcast and a variety of other things. I know, didn't they just come in? I think, or one of them came
Yeah.
in,
Well, some of
right?
the different ones have the hardcovers are on their way to me right now. So it's supposed to be here like Thursday. Right now they're saying Thursday. I shouldn't even say this because originally they were saying next Monday, and then I checked on because they ended up getting done early and they're shipping early, and right now it's scheduled for Thursday. But um, yeah. But it's been. I mean, anybody that's been dealing with any of this stuff knows it's stuff's been crazy with shipping and everything. And I mean,
It's going to get worse. It's going to
yeah,
get worse. I've reached out to I know I mentioned nothing about sponsors, but I'm not going to say
yeah,
who. But I've made a few phone calls, and obviously I'm looking for printing companies to sponsor
yeah,
this show, get my audience a good deal, get an affiliate or some money up front,
yeah,
whatnot. And they're all not interested in advertising. They're all worrying about this printed shortage. A lot of these companies have actually not advertised, and they stopped their advertising campaigns.
right,
And so I think this is going to get a lot worse. I think that we're in for a rude awakening, and I think prices are going to actually get more expensive.
yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. It would be interesting to see because Mike actually brought this up on one of our episodes of the Baron Earls show. He was talking about and I thought he was joking at first, but and he explained that he was serious. But they were talking about, especially with marijuana being legal now, that you can print on marijuana, and that it's a and I guess it's more of a sustainable resource just because there's so many people that are allowed to grow it and everything now. But it's like anything. I mean, it's gonna have to become like a real business where you can crank out a lot, like if you were gonna do stuff like that and use those things to like print on. But I don't.
Hemp paper is going to be interesting, but again, it raises a lot of questions,
Yeah.
and I don't really know where it's going, but that's not why we're here.
No.
So
Although
it's just like, I mean, as much as
no,
I love
no
on paper,
well, no, and no, and but I mean, there's a lot of people with disabilities who use hemp, so to be able to deal with their situations. But
whether that's coping with reading comics on hemp
yeah,
or
yeah,
doing something else with hemp or rubbing it, lotions,
right,
oils,
yeah,
all that stuff. And no jokes. I mean, for
yeah,
if that's what works for you and that's what helps you, obviously I'm not one to say, hey,
yeah,
if that's what makes your day better and your life better, I'm not going to stop anybody from doing anything. As long as you're not driving a car, I'm fine with you doing whatever you want.
yeah,
The second you're high and you're driving a car, whether
yeah,
that's alcohol or weed, I'm not interested
yeah.
because you're risking my life at that point. But
Oh
if
yeah,
you're in your house in your bed and you want to roll up one of them, more power to you.
yeah, yeah. I'm getting
Mm.
tired. I'm getting tired of the stories of moms and their kids and people being killed by drunk drivers and uh, high drivers and stuff. And but
It's not good, and I'm very open about it. Where people say, "Oh, people when they drink they drive faster, and people when they smoke they drive slower." What would you rather have? I don't want any of it because if you're driving slower, it doesn't matter if your reaction time because you
yeah,
might think you're turning at 15 miles, but you're turning at 7, and then the
yeah,
driver who's coming at you thinks you're
yeah,
going at 15 miles or 20 miles.
yeah.
All of a sudden that's a big difference.
Yeah,
So.
your depth perception is off and everything too. It's yeah. Yep.
But anyway, I definitely want to talk about disabilities, and obviously you have horror stories. I have bad stories. I have good stories as well,
Yeah.
and I have perception stories. So obviously, I think the best place to start, and share as much as you want. What is your disability or your condition that sort of
Right.
forced you? Because I saw your post, obviously,
Yeah.
and I think that that's something, and we spoke about this before on
Yeah.
previous episodes, but for those who don't remember.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's basically one of my main things is my main thing is psoriatic arthritis, which in my case was so bad that like it wore away these key bones that are like in your wrists, that like all the other ones kind of pivot on to be able to give you grip strength. And so like those are gone like in my hands. So like I mean like I'm not supposed to even lift like 1 pound because my uh really bad things can happen. And yeah, I can't do a lot of repetitive motion or anything like that. But I also have diabetes, so my so I don't heal as well because of those things too. Um, so yeah, it's been interesting. It, and it was very interesting at the time because it was really not planned at all. That my first creator owned thing that was going to be published was Pistol Fist, because I was in the works of talking with publishers. They were interested in doing stuff with me, but none of them, like, no, we were talking like 15 different projects and 15 different ideas. And it just so happened that Pistol Fist was the one that like 3 different publishers like jumped at. And it wasn't called that originally. That was one of the names that was thrown around. But it was funny because I didn't even get it. But at that time, for a long time, my day job was working as a orthodontic X-ray lab tech, and I and then my night stuff. Like I actually played in a Christian rock band for about 10 years, and did some other stuff like that. Did some various kinds of writing for some of the like local magazines or Florida, or like that would like get distributed throughout the state of Florida. And Not a ton of that, but then I just had a lot of different things going on. I was actually doing a lot more drawing back then, but the more problems I was having with my hands, this is before I really knew what was going on. That I just knew it was getting more difficult to draw and do things and play music and stuff. But it was also I ended up working a lot of late hours at my job, so I was never really giving my body too much of a break. And I've told a few people this because a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's great. You had the same job for 10 years, 20 years, like, in different things." And it's like, yeah, but when you're doing the same thing for so long, it really wears on your body. And it's like it's kind of good to switch to other kinds of jobs and things where you can kind of have your body in a different position, or even just whatever, whether you're standing up or sitting down, or you're moving more in one than you are in and it, like now that I'm older, I have seen people that have had multiple different kinds of jobs, that I think overall they're more healthy from what I've seen, just because they're not so if they're just not so much into like one thing. But there's so many people, where they do the same kind of work or whatever, that their back gets screwed up after a while, or their neck, or different things. And it's like,
So to even go further into this,
yeah,
because obviously you were working in a lab as an X-ray technician, and
yeah,
then obviously that is very, physical. It's intense to some degree. I
yeah.
don't think people don't think of an X-ray technician
Especially,
as an
well,
intense job.
yeah, yeah. Well, especially the lab stuff, because I would use pliers to make things, and it's really fine tuned, small things. So
And
yeah,
I don't say that to be dismissive. I just
no,
say that it's not somebody, you think of an athlete as being a physically intensive job.
right, yeah,
Like a quarterback getting sacked. It's pretty
yeah,
intensive. If somebody is a wrestler, it's pretty intensive as their job. Somebody is, I can't think of another job, but that's not the point. But it is intensive to some degree, and it also does put a lot of stress on you. And then obviously when you're doing that, and so when did it start happening? Because didn't you move away from drawing, which was going to make this harder,
Yeah.
and then going into writing?
Yeah, and that's when, because I was kind of doing both, and I had really done a little bit of both ever since like second grade. I kind of always liked the writing part and the creating part and the drawing part and stuff too. And I was very much into kind of American style comics and anime and manga and everything. And so like that was very much like I really wanted to do both. But then just the more I got working towards comics, it's like you can really, like, if you're an artist, you can only do like one book a month. If you're a writer, you can do like 4. And so I was really, I mean, that was one of the things that made me start looking at that, and the fact of that the more that I was doing things and getting things out there, I was coming across these incredible artists, from all over the place, and just realizing that it's like, wow, this is like, why not let people who are better at this than me like do handle the art side.
So let's even talk about that, because obviously, your condition has sort of destroyed, part of your hands to some degree, and made it extremely difficult. So what was that like, that transition? Because I think that's something that is complicated, because obviously with disabilities, and I have a CPA CC, for those who don't know, there are people who are born with disabilities and conditions like I was, and I have hereditary spastic paraplegia. And then the condition was worsened by a surgery that did not go as planned. And so I was born with my condition, and then other people develop it. And it doesn't mean that it's not one's better than the other. I don't want to conflate that. But some people also age into disabilities as well. And so what was that like for you? Because I think that's where this gets interesting for you in particular, is that it's this idea that all of a sudden you now have this issue where you can't really draw anymore, and you have to shift your entire career. And that's something that I think people don't understand.
Yeah, well, and a lot of time, and especially just the fact of it was, since I did have the day job, but a lot of times I would work longer. I'd work like 12-hour days and stuff. And so then, like, when something like that goes away, then it makes it tough. Plus I think I had around that time when it was getting to the point, like, my right hand was definitely getting bad. They did surgery on kind of exploratory surgery to like look inside and try to figure out what was going on. And the guy and the orthopedics specialist guy who did it was just like, he's like, man, he's like, you look, it's like you had the hands of a 80-year-old woman who is like, had her like wrists and things like gnarled by by a dog and stuff on the inside. I mean, he spent like, I think 4.5 hours just cleaning up like bone and tissue and things and stuff, just to get stuff out of there so that it could kind of help not swell as bad, and hopefully try to repair some. But he saw that, my other stuff was not, I was not healing like super great, not to the point of where it's actually growing bones back, especially when the bone was like gone in the one hand. Then it was like on the verge of going on the other when he did that. And that was, so I only had one done at a time, but then it was like I had to do, I mean, when we were seeing that a lot of the same stuff was going on with the left, and I mean, he was pretty much having to go in there just so I could like function, because I couldn't even barely like use my hands at that point. And he was and that was when, and we were kind of like, and he got mad at me too, because I actually had a brace on because I was trying to work, and I was actually tucking the pliers into the brace to be able to try to still do stuff and everything. Especially because we didn't really have somebody that could do my job at the office where I was at. We had people that could help a little bit here and there, but they had other things going on. But anyways, but that was definitely what I was counting on to feed my family. And because I was young, married, and I think we did have like a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, maybe even a little bit more. Like when my second hand surgery, I also had to have stuff done on one of my feet. He pretty much just said, like, when you came out of that surgery, he's like, you can't do your job anymore. He's like, this is like, you're done with your with your day job. Like, you are not, there's no way. He's like, because you cannot put pressure on these hands and wrists and stuff like that like anymore, and you're gonna have to do something else, which was when I was starting to look at and trying to get used to using dictation to write.
I was about to ask about that.
Yeah. And it's extremely difficult when you're writing creative stuff. It's not that hard when you're writing medical things or normal things, but if you're writing fantasy names that it does not recognize, or fantasy contraptions or sci-fi things that it does not recognize, it really slows the process down like a lot. So you have to learn a lot of tricks to kind of fake it out, to kind of fake out I mean, it's gotten a lot better now, but it's still it's still difficult. It just depends on what the words are, what the things are that you're doing. So yeah, any of the fiction stuff can be definitely it's just more difficult. But I mean, I got it down where I could do it pretty well.
So let's even talk about that, because one of the things that I think is very interesting, and again, I haven't written a comic, so correct me if I'm wrong on anything. So my understanding of writing a comic script in particular is that for the most part, unless you have a co-writer, you're writing alone. And even if you have a co-writer, usually one person sort of spearheads it, and then that person who's the second co-writer then takes it and then does their draft, and then you might have a third draft, or you might have a conference call, or whatever you're doing, and then you work it out together, and then it's sort of co-written is my understanding of usually how it works, unless it's like a husband and wife and they're just writing it together, sitting down at the kitchen table.
Right.
It's a good line, honey. High five.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's that, but even still, but there goes to the idea where you go into Hollywood, or you go into a Netflix series, or you go into wherever else things are being shot, and you're in a writer's table, and dictation, and I don't know what it is like today because I've never done this either, but all of a sudden dictation doesn't work in that circumstance.
Right.
And I've worked in government,
especially if they don't want you recording either.
In government, that's an issue. If I have a meeting with somebody, they don't want me recording it. They don't have a problem with me taking notes, but they don't want dictation. And and there's a lot of reasons. It's not even so much, that they don't want it recorded. There's just laws that protect people.
Right. Yeah.
To some degree, and they don't want to leak. And so what was that like? Because that's where things get tricky, I think, is that because if you're writing pistol fist, I think dictation is different than if you're, going in and writing something more Hollywood or that. And also, I don't know if it's changed now or whatnot, but it's clearly, back in the day, I mean, I'm going to be very nice, but Dragon sucked back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not Dragon's fault. I think Dragon is a huge thing, right?
I mean, they were one of the first ones to really get into it and try to I mean, it's like a lot of things. I mean, they're trying to make it for everybody, though. It's like they're doing it for the medical field and the legal field and all these other things. And obviously, I mean, in a lot of people's opinion, those are more important than entertaining people. And so, I mean, there's stuff like that. Like, I don't really get bitter over, especially because who knows, you could be writing a story that deals with legal stuff or medical stuff, where that stuff, it comes in handy, that it's very familiar with those, terminology and stuff, or even just having characters that might, be those things. I mean, that it helps. It was definitely, definitely in the beginning. I'm trying to think when it was, because it was probably around 2006, 2007. Yeah. And it really, I had already started getting into Final Draft, which is the screenwriting software that most people in Hollywood use. It's kind of like standard. The good thing is, like, that was getting better too. And getting that was one of the things that did help me, and that I have encouraged other people, especially people that I know that do have whatever kind of disability. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is how it can wear you down and make you tired, whether it's your mental stuff or your physical stuff or whatever. And so that can be difficult, but it has gotten a lot better. It's a lot more even then it was pretty intuitive, because it would pick up on, which was one of the things that did help me and make it a little easier, was that because with for people who don't know, with Final Draft, which people can get a decent price for it, like if you get it through a school thing, or they also have co-writer discounts. Like if somebody that has it, then you can actually say, hey, I'm co-writing with this person, and it's like takes like half the price off. But because it is very helpful, it's very intuitive. It's helpful for regular people, period, when you're writing, because it will guess it kind of, who's going to talk next. Because it realizes when you're having a conversation and it's going back and forth between, and so it will kind of, it'll prompt you to like put the other person's name or whatever. And you can, I can't even remember what it is, but it's like you have to say something like select something or something like that. And so there's things like that are shortcuts that you can kind of use. It just takes time learning all of the different terms and words you have to do with it. But that helped a lot. And one of the things, honestly, that had helped me was learning, because I work such long hours, didn't have a lot of time when I was at home. I actually would write on my lunch hour, which was usually about 45 minutes. So I would figure out a lot of stuff with my brain during the day or whatever, as I'm working things out and just doing these, bending things with wires or doing the x-rays and different things. And I would be figuring stuff out so that when I got to my lunch break, I could like crank out like whatever I was trying to do to get it ready to be able to do stuff. Because I was starting to do some things where it's like I had to write like at least a couple of pages like every day, because of the things we were working on, and the way that was going. But that was one of the big things that really helped me be able to not just with Pistol Fist, because I had some hangups with that too, because our son was in and out of the hospital a lot at that time when we were writing it. So I actually did have to bring on a co-writer to kind of help me be able to keep up with it. But also with some of my earliest stuff, and I'm one of those really weird people who's done like more graphic novels than comics. I think I've done like 16 now or something. It's like, which is very, and whether it was the manga version that was like, those are like 300 pages, or a lot of regular graphic novels, novel adaptions and stuff like that are like around 112, 130 pages, which is great when you're getting paid for it, because it really, it's something, because they tend to have funding and stuff like that for those things, and then you can depend on it, but then you also disappear from the main market for like 6 months at a time, because you have to crank out so much every week, which is, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of try to discourage people from doing really long graphic novels and stuff.
So to even go further into this, because obviously when you're doing comics, and again, I think with disability, obviously, if you have the right software, and nothing's easy per se, and we're going to talk about the physical side in a little bit, which is more my area.
Yeah.
And I got no problem sharing my experiences at cons and a variety of other stuff and what I do as a business. But one of the things that what happens when you go to Hollywood though? Because I
Yeah.
know that you have a story about that, and there's
Well, it's
issues.
basically why I couldn't, why I couldn't, and it's just like what you're saying too, because that would be one of the things that I would love to do, and that it probably suits my writing style more is like TV, and I can't, like you said, you can't use recording stuff, you can't do those things. When you're in the writer's room, which is where most of the writing gets done, except for because with most of the shows, you're the whole writers group is talking about everything, and then they give different scripts to different people to go kind of like you have the idea for everybody's kind of helped work out the story together because you're all, I mean, it's kind of like really it's like a shared universe because you got to know where the character's going, what they're doing, and all that stuff. So that you have to have the input from all the different people, especially for like, well, what's this character's journey and what's that character's journey and what are they, you got to know all that stuff.
For most shows, a show like SVU,
Yeah.
what you need to know with SVU is you need to know where is Captain Olivia Benson
Yeah.
at episode 1 of the season and where is she at episode 24 of the season. But
Yeah.
every episode in of that show is, okay, how do we spin out this crime against this person and make it a little bit different? But you get the character development as the shared universe. But a show, I'm in the middle of watching Manifest.
Yeah.
It just came on Netflix. And
Yeah.
you need to know where Ben is going
Yeah.
between the beginning of season 1, middle of season 1, end of season 1. And then you need to know where he's at in season 2. And
Right.
it's very complicated in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah. I mean, and those are great for binging and getting people to keep watching those kinds of things. But
I think most people don't know how a writing room actually works.
yeah, and they don't. Yeah, and they don't like. Yeah, I do wish more people kind of knew a little bit about the. Yeah, just good. But they'll have for people that don't know, there a lot of times they will have different kinds of cards or different things on big boards up, and they'll have like the people's names, and then they'll have kind of like lines going across and saying, okay, well, in this port here, he's going to ask this girl to marry it, and then 2 episodes later, they're going to get married, and then like and they kind of start planning out like the whole thing, and they have it going through. This like these are the character story, and then you have the other stories that they kind of do around it, and it requires a lot of talking, and most of them really do not let you record. And like, even if you did, like a lot of times what would happen is like they would record it, then you could take it home. If you got some kind of special permission, then you would have to play it for your dictation thing to then go through it. So, and a lot of times these meetings are like, I mean, they spend all days together. I mean, like 6 hours, 8 hours a day. I mean, so then you have to let your dictation thing print for that, be able to type up all that stuff. And I'm sure that there has to be more fancy software and things now. I do think a lot of things are going to be getting better. Which and I know everybody has mixed feeling. I do too, but with AI and everything, and just all the intuitiveness with that.
This is where I get interesting. So I do document remediation.
Yeah.
And I know how to remediate a PDF. I know how to remediate a Word document. I know how to make a website accessible. I know how to test to make sure your website's accessible.
Right.
And I know how to do things with a little bit of HTML, a little bit of Java script, and some other stuff. And the idea is that what AI is doing, and even with Microsoft Word, and obviously I think everybody uses Microsoft Word, very few people use other things. What's actually going on is that there's something called ARIA, which is Internet Rich Text and alt text. So if I do an alt text and I have a Microsoft Word subscription, I can actually give Microsoft my alt text, and then that actually gets integrated into the system. So if you have that and you're making your thing alt text as well, all of a sudden what actually happens is that my description might actually become the norm, which is crazy. So that's actually a learning AI. And so for a screen reader, and it's not the same thing as dictation, But I do think that we're going to get to that point. And what's also fascinating about PowerPoint is that you can actually do subtitles, live subtitles on PowerPoint. And what it'll actually do, and I've done this just as a mock-up, if you speak for 45 minutes, at the beginning, it's going to get things wrong. And within 45 minutes, PowerPoint's actually going to start recognizing your voice and understanding how you speak, and it will actually improve. So it will go from being maybe 70% accurate to being about 85 to 90% accurate over 45 minutes. And then it gets better and better and better. And that's what everybody's PowerPoint has. All you got to do is turn it on, which is crazy. And so it's terrifying, actually. I mean, but again, I'm solving a problem for somebody who can't hear me. When I do a presentation, they now can have access. And so it's kind of a crazy world in that realm. But I also think that, and the reason why I want to bring up the physical side is that I walk on crutches. And so if you have stairs, I have a hard time going up steps.
Yeah.
I'm not in a wheelchair, but I have a really hard time going up in steps. And so if you have an event or you have a meeting and you've got an elevator in the building, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Like, and it sounds crazy because there's the creative side of this. And I think this is where this gets interesting for me. And obviously I'm in the comic realm, and I could do maybe 3 steps. And I've been on, panels where I have to go up 3 steps, and it's not easy. It's not easy for me to go up 3 steps. And so if I can't go up the stairs, how can I even do my job? And I think that that's another thing that really people don't understand in the creative side and the business side of things, is that even going beyond just writing and getting creative with this is the location issue. And so I'm curious how you feel about that, because that's how I feel as somebody with a pretty physical disability. And I mean, these cons are huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and like I said, I mean, I can't really carry too much, and there's a lot of where you have to carry stuff or bring it like very, very far. Thankfully, like, I am grateful when there are people that understand and everything that I can't, and that they'll, I mean, the cool thing is, definitely like like I'm near Tampa Bay, and the Tampa Bay like comic community is pretty tight. Most of the people around here know each other, and a lot of them know that I have trouble like carrying stuff or whatever, and they'll offer to carry stuff for me. They'll say, and even if they see me like in a store or different things, they're like, do you have anything in your car that you need inside or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. And because there's just so many things like that you need to bring into places, and to be able to have things to show people. And it's like, I mean, well, there was something you brought up that I was gonna say about that, but yeah, I mean, definitely the accessibility, which, I mean, and I'm sure you're this way too. It's difficult when it's like a smaller business or a smaller, organization or whatever, that they don't have the money to really make it as accessible as it should be. But it's like, and then even then, it's like, you have things that are accessible for wheelchairs, but then not for people that are blind or deaf or like whatever. So it's kind of hard to kind of take care of everything.
It's interesting for me because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in my world.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things is that I used to live in DC, and AwesomeCon is fascinating. What AwesomeCon does is that they basically eliminate the elevators for everybody who doesn't have a disability or a stroller or something like that. Because and it sounds mean. It sounds mean, everybody. I'm the first person to say, "Oh, we're eliminating the elevator." But the reason why is because guess what? If you have everybody looking for an elevator, it gets clogged up.
Yeah.
I remember going to Animate Boston. And I haven't been back to Animate Boston. It's in Boston. I was in DC. It's a far trip. Now I'm in Connecticut. At some point I'll go back. I love Animate Boston. But you're going into the hotel, and you might have to wait 30 minutes for an elevator. And what if you have a disability and you can't go and use the escalators to get up to your room? And that's a
Yeah.
real issue in a lot of ways. And it sounds crazy, but it's the idea that you could be waiting 30 minutes. You know,
Yeah.
and I've been at cons that are in a hotel, and it's a real issue. And that's the thing, is that with Awesome Con, they basically say, look, if you don't have this red wristband, and look, they're not going to like heavily enforce it, but it
Right.
does solve an issue to some
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
And I think it is very important sometimes to even do that, because it does change the game for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, yeah, and it has to be. I can't imagine running some of these things because it has to be like fire hazards and stuff too when you just have so many people in a little elevator or whatever. Is like, most of the time that they're getting they're exceeding capacity for what is what should be in the elevators or in different things or in a lot of the rooms. I mean, because they just get so many people at certain amounts of time. But yeah, it's definitely challenging, and especially when you have stuff like I do that like people can't really see, because it's like inside my wrists more, and it limits like what I can do. That yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question, because, and then I'll tell a story with it.
Yep.
People, I like to think that I'm rather intelligent. I like to think that, and I mean, I went to college, I graduated college, I did a semester of a master's, I have certain certifications. Obviously, I run my eBay business, and I don't say all this to tout. I'm not trying to brag if that's coming off the way. The point I'm making is that I walked into a store with my mom, and I'm gonna use a word, and it's gonna make people wince, but it's the only way that this can be described. I walked into a store, and legitly the people thought I was retarded because
Yeah.
I walk on crutches.
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
no other way how to describe that. I work in an accessibility, and within about a minute and a half, they realized that, oh snap, he's not that. He has
Yeah.
a disability, and so I've seen it, and I get the sense where I could see it in somebody's eyes. I don't know if you feel that, but that's
Yeah.
also a big issue for me,
Oh
is that
yeah.
people look at me, people view me a certain way, and it is very, very weird. And then other people don't seem to give a damn.
Right.
Um, but it's a very weird thing when you talk about it, when you look at it, and I can smell it. And I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe it, but like I could smell it.
Yeah.
And so from a mile out, and you could just see it in somebody's eyes. And I don't know if you feel that way, but like it's a weird feeling, and it is
Yeah.
a problem. And then people also, view you. And then with cons, where it gets tricky is that some cons, they allow people with disabilities to cut the line. So I
Right.
was at a Stan Lee signing, and they wanted everybody who had a disability to go first. And the rationale behind it was the disability line was wider. And
Yeah.
also, if you have a disability, maybe you don't want them in the middle of the pack. You either
Yeah.
want them at the front of the line or the back of the line. You don't want them in the middle of the pack,
Yep.
because it's going to create a problem. Because people
Yep.
in front of you or behind you might pressure, and you're going to need more room to function. Like, there was a guy
Yeah.
who was in front of me who had low vision. He needed an extra like minute and a half. And I think that Stan Lee's handlers were well aware of it. And I think that's the other thing too, is that sometimes a con's handlers and some of these celebrities, I think, don't even understand that. And I
Yeah.
think that's a bigger issue, is that I walk on crutches. If I get something signed, I'm going to be putting it away in my bag. And you got to understand, I can't just get the fuck out of there. You
Right.
got to give me like a minute and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's conventions can be uncomfortable for everybody with how tight everything is, and how everybody's wanting to do stuff and get things done. It's not most people aren't that patient to wait. I mean, thankfully there are people who get it and they understand, and it's like, I mean, it's like I try to be, unless somebody's being a real jerk. I try to be, because like, to me, it's like there's always something worse, and it's like I'm always saying, like, this is not the hill I want to die on. It's like I don't care if you want to cut me off to go to Dairy Queen, knock yourself out. Is like that, I'm not gonna lose my cool over it, or whatever. I mean, it's just, you gotta, especially with stuff like this too. I mean, whether you're disabled or dealing with all kinds of different, just people in general, it's like you got to pick your battles, and do the things that are worth it, and not worry about the rest of it. But that's one reason why. And for people that didn't know, July is Disability Pride Month, which is not the same thing as last month's Pride Month. But and the reason why it is because this is actually when the first Bush, signed that, and to stop discrimination against people with disabilities and things. And they actually signed it in July and stuff, and that's why they did that. And it's supposed to be more about, it's more about, being proud of who you are. Some people, I have mixed feelings about that. About, like, what do you think about that? About because I kind of don't like. But this is just me. Like, I don't like saying, well, my identity is wrapped up in my disability. And
so I agree. Sorry to cut you off. Continue.
Yeah, no, and that's. But there are a lot of disabled people that view that, and they're not doing it in a whiny way. They're just saying, like, this is who I am. This is my journey. This is my life. This is, like, I guess I don't view things that way, as and I definitely don't want to use it as an excuse. I want to try to do other stuff. But I will say, one of the things, honestly, that started getting me back into comics, into writing, period, just doing different books and just a lot of different stuff, was I actually had some, and still do. I did not kill them. Some disabled friends that had different kinds of disabilities, and they, seeing me go after stuff and doing things and creating things, was really inspiring to them. And they would, like, call me, or they would kind of pull me to the side or whatever, and say, man, like, it's like, the fact that you're doing that makes me want to do, like, this thing that, I've kind of been writing off, that I can't do, and stuff. And they're kind of like, just because it's like, I know it's going to take me twice as long or three times as long, now that I have these issues in this situation. And but then there's I mean, and that's one of the things, I guess. And that's, to me, when I was, like, really hearing this, and it really hit home. I play a grumpy orc on a D&D podcast, that it's kind of family friendly, and a lot of people tend to like it. But one of our characters, one of the ladies who's on it, she actually does a lot of, her mom. I'm not 100% sure. I know her mom's been in a wheelchair for a long time, and she's dealt with that, and she's worked with a lot of disabled people with all kinds of different disabilities. And she made the choice, of when she was going to change and do this other character, to make the character disabled, and it was going to be like this centaur kind of thing, but it's a deer. And but she, like, has this, like, weird wheelchair thing that she uses, which is different than any of the other one. There's actually, for anybody that has not seen this stuff, there's a really cool thing called the battle wheelchair that a wheelchair bound lady actually came up with, like all of these rules and all this stuff for it, and it is super duper cool. And I think they've even, and I know like Matt Mercer with Critical Role and stuff, they even brought in a disabled character and stuff, and it was
this is interesting.
It's interesting because the way that you can, like, you can use it as different things. It's more about the good side of it than the bad side.
It's really, really interesting. And so this is how I view it, right? So I don't want to be tokenized with my disability, where I don't want somebody to say, hey, we need to have a disability character for the sake of having a disability character. You
Right.
know, I want that character to have merit. And I think, because I've seen it, right? I
Right.
mean, you've seen it too. Someone says, oh, we need to have a disabled character here. We don't have one. And it's very offensive to me.
Yeah.
And
There aren't too many good disabled characters in comics.
I mean, there's so many though in anime.
Yeah.
I mean, I could list off like 3 off the top of my head with ease.
Yeah.
Elric is disabled. In case you didn't know, he doesn't have an arm or a leg.
Right.
Natalie Lamperouge from Code Geass, that's 2. She's blind and in a wheelchair. She regains her sight. So there you go. There's Shino Amada from the 08th MS team. He loses, I think, an eye and a leg. You have a character from shoot, I'm thinking, man, it's blinking right now, but it's the thing where everybody's trapped in a prison.
Yeah.
He loses stuff. I mean, there are so many disabled characters.
Yeah.
In anime. And so like my whole thing is that it's very, very interesting in that regard.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's one of those things where I just think that, but I feel like those characters aren't tokenized, if that makes any sense.
Right.
I feel like they have merit. And so as a person with a disability, but I don't identify with Edward Elric either. But I also realized very quickly that, oh snap, he has a disability. And at some point I'm going to be creating a panel with this and we're going to dive into it. And I feel like anime does a very good job of saying, look, these characters have problems.
Yeah.
But they're at least attempting to overcome it. Or they have merit. Like Natalie doesn't cry that she's in a wheelchair.
Right.
But she also personifies innocence to some degree as well. And so it's very interesting in that regard. But also at the same time, I'm the type of guy that, I'm in the financial sector. In my personal life, I'm an investor. I buy and sell comics. And, my disability definitely affects me picking up merch to some degree and getting things signed and graded. But at the same time, I also want to win on my merits. And we talk about this. I mean, Kevin O'Leary, people say, oh, he's the asshole from Shark Tank. He has dyslexia. In case anybody didn't know, Barbara from Shark Tank also has a learning disability. So it's like, I look at all these people and there's all these top people who have learning disabilities and physical disabilities, and they seem to be doing all right. I mean, I was in an accessibility class and with a former teacher who helped get my certification and taught me a lot of document remediation. The guy is blind, but he's an excellent teacher on this. So I kind of went on my merit. So I get very, very torn on this because my disability affects my life in a lot of ways. And I mean, I have a hard time walking. It's painful at times, but at the same time, I want somebody to say, hey, if I open up my own investment shop, I don't want somebody to be like, Andrew has a disability, I'm going to bet on him. Yeah. Or if I take a job selling insurance, I'm not betting on Andrew selling insurance because he's disabled. I'm betting on him because he's going to sell me the best product possible and make me beyond wealthy and protect my family, protect my kid, protect my wife. Yeah. And, I'm not, against if somebody wants to say, hey, between you, the hardworking disabled man, versus this other person who's normal, who is not as hardworking, it's tricky. So I mean, but I agree because I'll ask you, do you want somebody to buy Pistol Fist because you overcame a disability, or do you want them to buy Pistol Fist because they were rooting for Benjamin Franklin kicking some ass? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, or they want to send it back to Russia and say, see, Putin, look what we did.
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, that stuff and the mistake that, and this is the mistake that a lot of the American comic things, I will say, can't remember his name right now, but they did do a good job with because and they have to know people that are deaf and stuff. But when Hawkeye went deaf, they actually did some really good stuff with that in the comics.
Matt Kint, maybe.
Yeah, and there's been some small things like that, but most of the time, and this is what this is what my friend who's worked with a lot of disabled people, she has a beef with, and she's like, she loves comics, she loves anime and stuff too, but is like most of the time they give the people powers that fixes their disability. Like Daredevil having his
I knew you were
senses
gonna go there. I knew it.
immediately. I mean, I kind of defend Daredevil a little bit to her because I'm like, well, but he is a lawyer, so they're kind of doing the whole justice, justice is blind kind of thing with that. But they do it, but they do it with a lot of the other characters. Even, I mean, even like Cyborg. I mean, and the irony is if they just presented them so that whatever because it's true, like what a lot of people say, that like your other senses will improve, or you just get, honestly, I think this is the, especially because I've been doing all this study on brains and stuff lately, but I think that it's your brain is able to focus more on less, so you can be better at those things, because it's like I say, I mean, because really, like, we're getting, like, our brain filters out so much stuff. That's why we don't use so much of it, because we would all be like crazy insane ADD people with if we were going by all of the every little thing we're feeling in the wind and the air conditioning and
It's
all the
interesting.
different stuff. But that's but like and this is a great example, and in some ways I kind of wish I would do. I've had some ideas to do something kind of like this, but there's a guy, I think it was in France, that people can look up. It was probably somewhere around there, but he was a police officer, and he ended up being blind, and and I think he was blind for a long time, but he had some of they call it, if for anybody looks it up online, it's called the Blind Sherlock or something like that, and is the nickname that they gave him because his ears are phenomenal. So anytime they would listen to anytime they would listen to things when they had different, wiretaps or recordings of people and stuff like that, like he could pick out like what parts of the city they were from, because of certain little ways of speaking and different things. And then also too, he can really nail down the way the different parts of the city sound if they hear stuff in a recording and stuff like that. And that's the thing, like, to me, like, that's where I think especially the American comics tend to miss it, is they don't focus on the good side. They focus on the bad, or they're just like, they're so focused on the bad that they have to fix it.
Interesting.
But I do think some of those things, I will say this, because one of the things I would love to do, I don't know that they would ever let me do it. But I had an idea, and I was just like, I don't care. I'm a professional writer. It's like I'll write some fan fiction. I don't care. And I was gonna write, because I had some ideas for a Teen Titans kind of team of disabled characters, because they actually have a lot of either characters who are disabled, or they're connected to other superheroes who were disabled. But like DC has this terrible habit of like taking Oracle out of the chair and turning her back into an able-bodied
That's insane,
guardian
right?
again.
Oracle is so important in so many ways.
Oh yeah, and then they did it. Who was the other one? They did it with the with the what's her name, Cassandra Cain or whatever, the Batgirl who was mute, and then there's like this guy that, like, he fixed her brain so that she could learn to speak again, because the writers thought it was too hard to do. I was like, you're in a silent medium. It's like you're not hearing anything when you're reading a comic. That's the
There's so
perfect
many things
medium.
they could have done with that too, in which that they could have had.
Oh,
They could have brought Jericho and had Jericho possess her.
Yeah.
Like that would have been brilliant. Now you have her speaking with Jericho's voice, and now it becomes a bigger problem. Now you have her in the Teen Titans. Come on. That's like a 3-issue arc story that's just going to write itself.
Yeah.
And now it's Jericho's resurrection. Now you have the problem where you could have that great moment between, Deathstroke / Slade and Jericho. And then now what do? Because you got a new character who's now speaking, but it's all Jericho-esque. Oh, brilliant. Just I could write that, and I could write that in like an hour. I could write 90 pages in an hour.
And that's and that's the thing. That's where they squander it. The things that could be really cool and really interesting, and it's like, oh, you guys, just like you're like, you're almost there, and then you're just missing it. It's like that. It's like, man, it's like I can't even, especially when you think about how many great, like of course a lot of people are sick of them now, but how many great Wolverine comics there are, and he doesn't talk that much in it. If there's any talking going on, it's his mind in the caption boxes and stuff.
I mean, there's so much that could be done with even her as a mute and that realm. And we say this not to be mean, and obviously calling somebody a mute can be offensive. So that's not the goal here.
Yeah.
And again, I said we're having an adult, very open, free discussion here. But like even just you could have her thought bubbles, and you could have her thinking about a cute boy and how she's going to react. Because Cassandra Cain's kind of a babe. I mean.
She's
I would say like
she's I mean, it's like a lot of people said too, she's like one of the best like martial artists like in DC Comics and stuff too. It's like she's such a bad butt, but then it's like it's like, but that's perfect to have her be this opposite. Like one of my ideas too for the I was calling it Titans Unlimited. My idea, I was actually gonna have Captain Marvel Jr. Be a part of it, and him kind of being the example, because for people who don't know, when he's not Captain Marvel Jr., he is in a wheelchair, and I was gonna have him be the only one who was just like, he was always like in superhero form, and just be like, dude, it's like, you got to deal with it. It's like, you got to, deal with the fact that you're you got to come to terms with the fact that you're disabled.
There's so much there.
I mean, it's just,
and I'll write Teen Titans West.
Yeah.
6 issues.
Exactly. Yeah, no, in all seriousness, I would, I mean, in all honesty, and that would actually be a great way to get some attention, is have people write different things. And honestly, a lot of people, and this has been a big thing for me anyways, just like I am a very anti-eugenics kind of person, and but I think that stuff, man, I mean, especially you get into Nazis and everything else, I mean, they are people who really get into eugenics are great villains, and can be very disturbing and everything. And
so let's even talk about this, because this is something that I think is part of the problem with comics, is that, IDW is publicly traded. I don't know if people knew that. You can buy shares of IDW.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an OTC, which is over the counter. But it's the idea that you could obviously buy Warner Brothers Discovery, which is DC Comics. Disney owns Marvel. I own Warner Brothers Discovery. I own some Disney. No question about it. They're great companies, but they own those IPs.
Yeah.
And they do have, to answer to shareholders. And there is an issue with that, where can they really push the line? And the reason why I say this is that I could go with you and me both right after this, discussion. We could sit for an hour and write a disability comic, but then we have to crowdfund it. Are we really going to make that big of a splash? And this is the problem, I feel, is that if you want to change the landscape, right, you need to have it done correctly with Marvel or DC.
Yeah.
And it's not an indie problem, because it's changing the culture. There's a wrestling event called Change the Culture, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to change the culture of wrestling. They're trying to change the culture of, getting an African-American, first-time world champion. You know, it's a big deal, and it's happened. You know, right now, one of the best wrestlers in the world is a gay black man, you know, AC Mack. That's a big deal in wrestling. He's like the first openly gay recognized champion ever. And he's an openly gay black man at that. And he's arguably probably the top 10 wrestlers in the world. And that's including WWE. You put AC Mack with John Cena, they can still WrestleMania with ease. No question. That is how good AC Mack is. And I don't say that because AC Mack's been on my show. That's because that guy is unbelievable. And the amount of shit that guy can talk is unbelievable too. But my point is that I think that I think that's one of the problems here is that you need to have a well done, even if it's a one shot, because I think it would be a game changer. And I think, you know, DC's done it with gay characters to some degree.
They've both done it with lots of gay characters. I mean, at Marvel and DC, and they push that a lot. And it's like, man, but there's like just as many, if not more, disabled people that are out there. I know in America, it's like 1 out of every 4 people has some sort of disability.
It's 1 out of 4, and then what it is that I mean, my CPA there were questions on this, and I mean, it's 1 out of 4 in the world, or 1 out of 5 in the world.
Right.
That's self-reported. It's about 20 to 23% of the population in America has a disability. Now, it gets complicated because people age into disabilities. People have temporary disabilities, but then I have a permanent disability. But then you get into a bunch of different stuff. But again, in America, it's about 1 in 5. In the world, it's about 1 in 4. But that's still a lot of people. I mean,
that's the thing. Like, think of the audience that is there.
Just to put this in perspective, so if there's 1 in 5 in America, I'm going to ask you a question. How many people, what do you think the amount of people who know who a veteran is or a soldier who is currently serving in the U.S. is compared to disabilities percentage-wise?
I don't know.
It's less than 1%.
Yeah, I would think so.
So my point is not to make the veteran point, which is also a big issue in of itself. But that's a whole different discussion for a whole different podcast.
Oh yeah.
But it's the idea that with disabilities, you know, everybody in America knows somebody who has a disability.
Yeah. I mean,
you walk into the mall, you're going to see somebody with a disability.
Yep. And I mean, and a lot of people that you know who have some sort of, you know, mental disability or something too. With, I mean, technically, I mean, a lot of forms of ADD and different things can be. But it's like, man, there's an awesome new movie out called The Disruptors, and they actually talk to a lot of very famous, very big people like Will.i.am and a bunch of other people who have like ADD and ADHD, and they've kind of were bringing out like all the most recent research, and it's like the thing is it's like the distraction and being easily distracted is obviously the bad side, but the good side of that is curiosity, and a lot of those people, and it's like all over the, you know, political spectrum and everything. I guess even, well, and I saw a little clip and they were like talking to like Glenn Beck and like just a ton of different people, and a lot of them were saying it was like the more things I have going on, like the better I am, the more comfortable I am, like the more screens, the more other stuff. And it's like you can turn those bad things into good things, like you were saying, those very successful people on Shark Tank. It's just, you know, and some of those things too, it's like you have to wonder, it's like would they have even been as successful if they didn't have to push against that?
I'll throw it to you where it's the idea with me. I mean, I used to do a bunch of panels at cons. Now I haven't been back to a con because of COVID and other things are going on. And honestly, but I did 50 panels because I realized very quickly, even when I was in better health, I can't run around like the young kids. When I
Right.
was 21, I realized real quick. When I was 18, I realized I'm 29 now. That was 11 years ago. I can't run around like these kids. So I built panels to attract people to me.
Right.
So think about that skill for a second. Now, I realized that I had a problem. There was situations going on. Obviously, I'm in a worse case now than I was 11 years ago. But I said, wait a second. I need to figure out a way how to attract people to me. I need to make myself attractable. I need to say, hey, how do I get somebody to my idea? And I sold out a panel in the Javits Center. I don't know how many people have done that in the comic realm. I don't.
Right.
And I did it at an anime con, but I sold out a 250 person panel, 3 years ago at Anime NYC.
Nice.
That's a big deal because that's a game changer for a lot of people. When you're speaking to 250 people and they're all
Yeah.
glued at you for like 35 minutes straight, you're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
I have a lot of power in this room. But again, I can't run around like crazy. I just
Yeah.
can't. And so I figured out how to do something. And, as an investor, because I have a disability, I see things differently. And I think I'm a pretty decent investor. I'm doing all right. I run my eBay business and that's profitable. I'm running on
Yeah.
average anywhere from 42 to 52% profit margins. I don't think people understand what that means.
Yeah.
So that means that if I'm doing $25,000, which I'll probably hit this year, I'm pulling in about 10 grand free cash flow
Oh,
after
nice.
I pay my taxes and replace my merchandise.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying this to brag, but what's happened to me is because of my disability. I think that this goes to that point. It's the idea that, oh, snap, like if you have a disability, it's how you see things. But I also
Yeah.
see a lot of problems.
Oh yeah.
Where
Yeah.
I think that there's a cultural problem. I think there's a viewership problem. I walked into a store. I'm not naming the store for a reason. It's a big
Yeah.
company. And within a few minutes, they realized very quickly that, oh, snap, this is not like, because they probably saw somebody in my current circumstance, and that person probably did have a form of mental retardation.
Right.
And they just assumed that I'm with my mom, because guess what? I can't carry a 7-pound Lego car that I'm buying for $400.
Yeah.
I can't carry my Lamborghini Sian, which is a $380 Lego set that weighs like 11 pounds. While I have crutches, I just can't do it. So that's the only reason why she was there. But then they were like, oh, snap, you're actually buying. And then you start talking. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's got this horsepower and this stuff. And they're like, oh, snap. Like, it's a real conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, like you said, there's opportunities. I will say, and I've been like, man, I could be a real jerk about this if I wanted to, but it's like, it's like, is it really, is it worth it? But like, cause me personally, I liked, reading comics on Comixology.
Oh,
Although
I love it. I
I
love
don't,
it.
I'm not crazy about the way they've updated the app. I will tell you that. But one of the things I liked, and they did it on the DC Universe thing, was they had, aside from the fact where you can just go panel to panel, which is just like perfect for comic reading, but they had an autoplay function on DC Universe. And I have asked Comixology to add that many times, and I have never even gotten a reply. And I've reached out probably about at least once a year for the last like 7 years, and just say, man, you guys you don't know, like not even just for people that can't hold things as long or can't do things as long, but for people that have their hands that they're busy doing stuff. But they would love it if they could have that going while they're doing this menial task with their hands, if it could just like slowly do it. And it's like,
It's interesting. So one of the things that we spoke about in my class, right? So when we talk about accessibility,
yeah,
one of the things that's interesting is that, so when you're making something accessibility and I'm trying to sell you on accessibility, there's a few ways how to sell you on accessibility. I could say, hey, look, you are working for the government, you got a multi-million-dollar contract, you want to lose it, right? So if I know my client has a government contract and the contract's worth like $100 million, you're going to do it accessibility. I don't give a fuck if you like it or not, because the $1 million you're going to spend on this deal for me to make your website accessible is worth $100 million. So that's argument one. But the better argument that I like to make is the idea of saying, look, you want to give the best user experience to your clients. And you know what is? There's people who have disabilities who are your clients, and there are people who don't. Guess what? Elevators are great. Elevators are meant for people who are in a wheelchair, or like me, are in crutches, or maybe a woman with a stroller. But you know what? You're a normal person. You don't want to hike up 10 stories of stairs,
Right.
because it sucks. So if I want to sell you on putting in an elevator, I'm going to sell you on both the accessibility and the other client position, because a lot of things that are accessible are also beneficial to other people.
Right.
So if I'm Comixology, I'm not going to sell you. I'm not going to sell you the accessibility argument. I'm going to say, look, this is going to make a bunch of people have a better user experience.
Yeah. Well, and like, I don't
But
know.
it becomes accessible too.
Oh, yeah.
Because my objective when I'm making something accessible and making a product accessible is to get the accessibility, but I don't care how I get it.
Right.
I care that I get it. So if I say to you, I'll buy you a red shirt, make your website accessible, I got what I wanted, right?
Yep.
And maybe this is the wrong attitude, and maybe this will cost me a job, but my objective is to get A. But if I have to give you B to get A, but B is going to cost me $10 to get it, but I got A. That's how I function as a human being.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem with the extremely woke crowd that want to shame people into things and things like that. It's like, I don't care. It's like, I just want that, or they should do this. It's like, I don't care why they're doing it. They can do it for the people that are completely abled. It's like, that's all I care about. You don't need to virtue signal. You don't need to guilt them and tell them how much better you are than them, because you care more about disabled people or different things. I mean, honestly, there's bad disabled people who are mean and hurt people and rob people, and it's like their life experience.
Did you see January? Did you see January?
Yeah.
There was somebody who I think has a disability. I can't confirm it, but I'm willing to put money on it.
Right.
And that went after me. And I'm like, what the fuck? This has nothing to do with being disabled. This has nothing to do with it. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You having a disability does not determine whether you're an asshole or you're not.
Yeah.
I know plenty of people who are nice people who have a fucking hard life, and they have every right to be an asshole. Like, my friend is more or less going blind, and then I could say that. And every once in a while, he's an asshole for a day. And in college, and he's like, man, my eyes are just fucking killing me. He's just being an asshole. I'm like, he just doesn't want to deal with it. He brushes everybody off. But nobody holds it against him, because you have a right for a few days in the year, you have a right to be an asshole. Technically, everybody has that right, technically. But it's the idea that, like, I agree that having a disability is much like if you're gay, whatever gender you choose. It has nothing to do with if you're a good person or a bad person.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it kind of coming back to what you were saying too. I mean, but you're right that and that's where this is where I'm definitely more of an independent, because I see both sides of the things, and it's like, but I have argued on the, like, sometimes it takes, you have to have a mandate or an agenda to get things to change, because you have to help make people and give them different goals and different things. But like you said, I mean, honestly, if we really wanted stuff to change, I mean, it really needs to be like a regular series of at least a year long or something.
I have a different approach on this, where I believe that sometimes you need protections. But I would make the argument where I would just throw it out right to DC. I'd be like, look, you know what? And I would call them out on it. I would call them out. I would say, look, you have done every other goddamn group. It's time that you do the final group, or you're hypocritical. And you know what is, you got to put pressure on them. And I believe putting, economic pressure, and I believe like saying, look, I think we're going to sell a fuck ton of books, and look, I got a plan here. Like, I would love to go to DC Comics and say, look, I want to reform DC Comics. I know how to do it. And I know how to turn that company into make so much money that they're going to get so many new fans. I'm going to do things that if I was in charge of DC Comics within 3 years, I'm going to triple their profits. Not their worth, their profit. Right. There's a big difference between that, because I like the P word. I don't like the W word. The W word doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
Profits means everything to me. The idea is that, I would just be like, look, we're just going to sell a lot of books. We're going to have 12 issues. And you know what it is? You're going to be asking for a 13th and saying, look, this is going to be good for your shareholders. This is going to be good for press. And I'm going to outline 14 arguments that is actually going to make them money. And this is how I think, is that I say, look, why don't I make you money with this concept? And I think that's the whole thing. And I'm not saying they're going to call me up anytime soon, but if I was to do it, and look, I view things differently. And that's how I view things. And so, but again, I believe in also building my own shit. And so, at some point, and I don't know if I'm ever going to do this, but I would love to write the book called Disability Investing. And it's all about the guide, if you have a disability, how to invest, so that when you cannot get to a point, if you know you have 30 years, then it's the guidelines on how to build out a whole portfolio, so that if you start at 25 and you can only make it to 55, you're set for life. And I think, and I'm not doing it to be altruistic. I'm doing it because I'm going to make a fuck ton of money. No question about it. And I don't think anybody's ever done it. And I don't know if I'm ever going to do it, but that's like my wheelhouse, because I'm technically doing it right now.
Right.
And I think I'm going to make it past 55 and be able to work further because of the field I'm in. But the idea is that I believe in building your own as well.
Yeah. Yeah. But the tough thing, is you got to have that promotion, and you got to get people willing to cover stuff when they a lot of the things don't like covering it because of the way it's which is why DC and Marvel have changed some of their disabled characters and made them abled again. Because
I'm going to ask you a question, and this is actually relevant. You brought it up. So I don't know how many people you have actually spoken to this and had a very serious conversation on this very topic, because I've done maybe 2 or 3 disability podcasts.
Right.
And I don't even know where to find them. Also, I don't really like talking about it. No offense. You don't
want to focus on it all the time.
Yeah, but also, you know what is? I go on some of these shows and I feel like it's a pity party, right?
Right.
Like, and pity parties are fun sometimes. I'm the first person to say that every once in a while I like to bitch and complain.
Oh, yeah.
And you all do. Yeah. And like to say, oh, that guy fucking screwed me. Fuck him, right? That's fun sometimes. But there gets to a point where I'm like, okay, look, I got a disability. I got to fix my life.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, I'm curious, like, how many people have you had a very serious, honest, very focused discussion on besides this one? Because I think that's part of the problem when we talk about coverage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yeah, there's not as much out there, because I do think a lot of it is that, like, people don't want to be pitied. It's almost yeah. It is kind of like generally, I'm sure there's some crossover, but it's kind of different than because you don't want to be pitied. I mean, most gay people aren't pitied. Like, that's not the issue that's not the acceptance that they're dealing with is being pitied and looked.
because I'll be very honest. Sometimes
Yeah.
when I self-identify, like there's all these jobs, right? I'm applying for all these
Right.
disability jobs, right? And they say,
Right.
do you want to self-identify with the disability? And it's complicated. And even on
Yeah.
jobs that are not disability, I'm like, am I going to get penalized if I come out as a disabled man? Is the girl I think is cute, is she going to view me differently? Is she going to view me not as a man or not as the guy, you know, or as people in the comic world when they see this interview and they're watching, they're like, oh man, Andrew has a disability, I view him less. I mean, there's
Right.
that in the back of my mind, and I'm not. And honestly, I mean, if you view me less because I have a disability, I got 2 words for you: fuck off. And I cannot do Gordon Ramsay, but just imagine him saying it.
Yeah.
You know, in Hell's Kitchen, might I add.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, you know, there is an issue with that because there are some people in this comic world who are going to view me less because I self-identified as a man with a disability. No question about it. I know it, and some of them are my friends, and I hate to
Yeah.
say it. I know. I'm not saying I know exactly who they are, but they're going to be thinking parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah, it's a tricky issue when you're like, I'm a comic writer and I walk on crutches. Like
yeah.
people are also going to say, hey, did you get that job with DC because of A, B, C, and D?
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's that's the hard thing. You got to kind of have the thick skin and stuff and learn that and not look online at Twitter and some different things because yeah, I mean, because people will just be mean and nasty, period. But it's
No shit. It's called January this year.
yeah. And well and the I was gonna say you're oh, there was something you
I'm
brought
a
up.
tough son of a bitch. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
January fucking killed me. I went through a bottle of Jack in like 20 days.
Wow.
Not a small bottle either, like a 1.75. I
Yeah.
went through it pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I was gonna drink in like 20 days. It was not good. The amount of shit that I was getting, man. Ugh.
Yep. Yep.
But I must say, I didn't feel pain in my legs for that entire month.
Yeah. That's the bright side. Yeah.
I mean, in the morning I felt pain in my head, but that's not the point.
That's true.
No.
Yeah.
And the reason why I bring all this up is because it's always in the back of my head as a creator, where, you know, one of the things that I really thoroughly enjoy about what I'm doing in this show is most people don't see me walk. Most people don't see me doing anything. I'm just sitting
Right.
here. And, you know, I don't talk about my disability all that often. You know, a bunch of people don't even know I have one. And I'm like, cool, you know, and most people know that I mispronounce names sometimes that are really hard to say, and then they correct me. But I think a lot of people do that,
Right.
and so that's one of the things that I like about this because I feel like, hey, you know, with some of the stuff I've done and some of the interviews I've done, I've won on the merits,
Right.
and it's very rewarding when
Yeah.
you're beating somebody out based on the merits.
Yeah.
But it's also tricky because, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I'm probably not going to be going back to cons right now for a while.
Yeah.
COVID's a factor, money's a factor, and then on top of that, I'm just not physically like able to do it. And so there are people who are interviewing certain guests that I cannot have access to, and so it's tricky for me as
Yeah.
a comic creator, not a comic creator yet, but as a podcaster,
Yeah.
where I'm like, I can't lobby somebody out of con, and so it's really just a very weird thing because I don't think people even think about that on an interview base.
Right.
They're like, the fact that you're interviewing, you know, a top comic person, and you can't physically go to a con to lobby them, and I can. You know, I
Right.
can't do a podcast interview at a con. I just can't. Where I physically, because I have a hard time doing that and going to the con. And so it's a weird thing for me. And I think that that's something that people, when they look at disabled people in comics, they don't even realize that, hey, this person doesn't have the exact same resources that me as, I guess, an able-bodied person has.
Yeah.
Because it's not anymore just the creation. It's also the networking. It's also the idea of being there physically, getting that feedback, interacting. Even, if you're physically exhausted and you get there, you might not be in the best mood to sell. And I
Yeah.
think this is a very complicated issue. And I think people, and it's not to say, hey, I want your pity, but it's also the idea that I think people have to say, oh, snap. Like, I didn't even think about it from your angle. And I think, I'm curious how you view all that, because that's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I just think with a lot of this stuff, um, people like their boxes and their labels for people, and so it's tough because for like us too to be able to say things or feel free enough to share things. It's like you said, you don't want to be labeled that. But also, like you said, I mean, I know I have on, like, I keep looking more and more at like how much longer I'm going to be able to do this or that. One of the reasons, honestly, why I've done more podcasting things is because of just my ability to do some of the other things, and honestly, just the opportunities. Like you're saying too, not being able to get around to things. It's like I can't. Like for me, like it would be extremely. With my arthritis and everything else, it would be extremely difficult for me to like go to Hollywood and get a Hollywood writing job. Just because of all the meetings you have to take and all the different, I mean, and like I shared in my post where like I had NBC Universal was interested in buying a script, and then that fell through because they were canceling the series. But it was good. Like I made good enough connections and stuff there. They're like, hey, you should come to this thing that we do this once a year for kind of an inclusivity thing. Now, I mean, honestly, like diversity, they have a really good diversity program. The thing is now it's so much more about your skin color and your sexual preference. There's not much focus on disabilities and things like that, even though more people deal with those things. But
I'll throw you something so I'm a big Kevin O'Leary fan. There's no question. I love
yeah,
Kevin O'Leary. I love Kevin O'Leary with ETFs and the indexes he built. I'm not an ETF guy, but I like what he's done.
yeah,
I have a watch, fetish now, partially because Kevin O'Leary. I have a Dragon Ball Z G-Shock watch. Okay, it's an
that's cool.
awesome watch, and
Sounds
I'm
pretty cool.
waiting. I'm saving up money to buy the One Piece one. It's like its sister. They're cool watches.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm a big anime fan, and then when G-Shock releases their next thing, I'm gonna be doing that. I wish I bought their NASA watch. That's super cool. And I
Yeah.
might buying, it's expensive now, but if I make enough money, be buying Kid Cudi watch. That thing is sick.
Oh, nice.
It's an awesome watch. It looks so girly, yet it's so awesome. It's
That's cool.
so awesome. Like it has like in the dark, it lights up and it has its logo in the background. It's an awesome
Yeah.
watch. I'm not even a Kid Cudi fan. I just like the watch. But the whole thing is that CNBC for June had every like day they had an update from one of their staff who is gay at like the halftime or during power lunch. They
Yeah.
just had Kevin O'Leary on at the halftime report with the panel. Kevin O'Leary has a disability. It would have been an amazing time to be like, Kevin O'Leary's worth $500 million and he has dyslexia. How
Yeah.
hard would it be for CNBC to highlight, somebody on their staff who has a disability like they did for Gay Pride Month? And look, I'm not trying to take away from Gay Pride Month. I'm just going to say it because I don't care.
Right.
How hard would it be for them to do it? Or is it just not sexy enough? And that's what I think it comes down to, is that it's not sexy enough.
I mean, it's a negative view. I mean, it's because people look at it as a negative thing. So they don't, yeah, they don't
Yeah,
see the positive
yeah.
side. So it's
My whole thing is that there was this commercial. I forgot for what company. It was maybe 10 years ago. And it was this kid and his sister. And the kid had either Down syndrome or something. And it was a clear, visible disability. and a condition. And the entire thing was, I guess, selling like an index fund or an ETF or like Vanguard or something, and saying we just want to have enough money to live on. And the whole point was about investing now, and it
Right.
showed two, siblings playing and basically investing so that they could have a fixed income position every month based off of their investments.
Right.
And man, if that commercial, if you're a parent and your kid's fine, and I say that very openly and not again to be offensive,
Right.
if your kid doesn't have that thing, you don't have to worry about that problem. Man, that's an inspirational. And if you're a parent that does have to worry about that, what you're basically doing is you're saying, I'm building my kid a trust so that my kid, when I'm
Yeah.
gone, is taken care of. And man, that's a great commercial. And boy, dude, if I get an opportunity to work with one of these companies and I get to be their media director, that's commercial number one. Because I will
Yeah.
sell more financial positions off of that one commercial than any other company in America. Because that will
Yeah.
hit right to the core. And that is not a sexy commercial. That's an emotional commercial. But
Oh, yeah.
that's again, raising and changing the culture.
Yeah. That's the question. Like, how do you, obviously you change the culture by focusing on the positive and not the negative. So, you have to spin that and you have to make sure that that's what you're doing. But yeah, it's hard because you got to do it. You have to do it in big ways. Almost the way that they do some of these movements and things. And it's like, I don't know. It's who really well, and that's the problem too, is that the disabled, like I said, a lot of us get tired a lot easier. And just so many different things. It's harder to really get an organization like or a big movement thing going because it just don't have the energy, and or at least the stability that a lot of the other things a lot have had with some of their different like leadership and different things. And it's like, but yeah, because it like you said, it happens. So many people are either born that way or they become disabled through like all accidents or whatever. And it's like it's a shame that we don't have more heroes like that and everything.
And I'm the first person to say, look, it's partially, my fault, because what I'm trying to do is that a lot of my focus is digging myself out of hell.
Right.
And I didn't start my eBay business to be like, I want to be a businessman. I kind of do, and I kind of want to be rich. But I
Yeah.
also am trying to build a financial stability position, and it's a side hustle. And I take that money and I invest it into relatively what is known as fixed income.
Yeah.
And so I'm making sure that I am going to be financially okay. I'm going to be making sure that when I have a family, they're going to be financially okay.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that I think, and I think that that's just as important, where I'm making sure that, God forbid something gets worse in my life, God forbid, or I'm giving myself options where
Yeah.
I don't have to take a shit job if I don't want to, or I
Yeah.
could leave the job the second they become disability unfriendly, or
Yeah.
the second that the sector goes a different way, or somebody's being an asshole. They're like, Andrew, I don't give a shit that you have a disability. You're carrying all these boxes, and if you fall and you break your leg, fuck off.
Yeah.
I'm making sure that, and so that's why I've built my business, and that's the intention of my eBay business. I'm doing it with comics, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but it's also that responsibility. And
Yeah.
so I'm not focusing on the movement per se,
Right.
because I'm focusing on making sure that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be better than okay. And I think that's part of the issue too, is that a lot of these people with disabilities, they're like, look, I'm just trying to live my life, man.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not necessarily making $1 million, but I'm more in the black than the red, and my
Right.
leg hurts, and I want to have a beer and watch TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's the issue too. But I think again, it is. It's complicated. I think in comics, it's tricky because comics. I hate to say this, but it's very competitive, and I don't
Yeah.
think comics is a healthy environment.
Yeah.
I don't, and I think it's an unhealthy environment. I'm saying it anyway because, and this is just my experience of being in the field as a podcaster for over 10 years. I find this space to be massively competitive. I find podcasting to be massively competitive.
Oh
And I
yeah,
find
yeah,
people want to say, hey, you have a disability, you're having a shit day, let me fucking get a step above you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta not care, but
I'm
and
at that stage where zero fucks are being given.
yeah,
I've reached that position. And that's where I'm at. Like, it's weird.
yeah,
Like, it's a weird position. It's taken me a long time to get here, where I don't give a fuck about anything right now. I'll tell you what I gave a fuck about. I got a fucking Pokemon card today. That's what I gave a fuck about.
yeah,
Okay. So that's where I'm at.
yeah,
Is I care about me. I care about my show. I care about my economic portfolio. I care about my family. And, there's a few other things I care about. I care about my dog. But,
right.
like, I don't give a damn about anything fucking else right now. At some point I'll meet a girl. At some point after she signs the prenup, I'll care about our kid.
Yeah,
And I'll care about when she's pregnant, and I'll care about her. But after she signs the prenup, see, you all laugh, but I'm telling you, it's just the way it is.
yeah.
Marriage is a contract. That's all it is. If you want a lover, there are plenty of other methods to get one. No, notice how I don't care today. Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
but yeah, no. That's where I'm at. So
Yep.
I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to this discussion. Now that I've ruined your career and mine.
Ah,
And we're writing Teen Titans Unlimited. We're gonna write it, and then we'll sell to DC.
yeah. I mean, that's you know, I, I'll I mean, I've talked about doing it and stuff, and I may just do it and start putting it out there. I mean, it'd be cool if other people ended up doing something and kind of running with it, but
Don't
yeah, I
worry,
don't.
don't worry. We'll figure out a way how to get it in.
Yeah,
We'll get it in. Don't worry. But
yeah,
we'll charge them $500 a page instead of the normal
yeah,
rate of like 300.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll tell them it's because we're disabled. We need the money.
Maybe we could loop Scott Snyder to be our editor.
Yeah, I tell you, man, when he got his and it's funny because I've seen people fall apart, but when he got his big deal with Comixology, man, his comics on there are freaking awesome. I think
So
it's some of the best writing he's ever done.
I think some of his stuff is half and half. Like, I
Yeah.
thought No Country was okay. I didn't think it was anything special.
Oh,
I
but
thought
that yeah,
what?
that wasn't part of the Comixology thing though.
No. I think We Have Demons was really good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But like, I think some of it's really good, and I think some of it's like groundbreaking. I think some of it's okay. Um,
I like
I
that
don't think
horror one, and I'm not a big horror guy, but I like that Night of the Ghoul or whatever.
Yeah. I thought that was enjoyable. I'm not a horror guy, but I didn't think it was better than We Have Demons. I think We Have Demons
Yeah.
was fantastic. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's some of his best writing. I think Batman, his run on Batman was better than that Ghoul one
Yeah.
that I read, because it's so like, I think We Have Demons and his first, like, the 50 issues in Court of the Owls are like
Yeah.
right next to each other as his top work.
I like a lot of his All-Star Batman too. A lot of the stories he had in there. I was like, because he had more freedom to try stuff and do stuff, and I think most of it worked in there pretty well and was done really well. But
It's weird. He follows me on Twitter, and I don't know why.
well, I think he follows everybody now. But he's been doing that a lot more with a lot of people.
No, this was maybe like 6 years ago. He started following me, and I'm like, I'm not that special.
Interesting.
There's a bunch of weird people who follow me on Twitter, and I'm like, why are you following me on Twitter? I don't say anything important. I shoot out a bunch of memes about My Little Pony, and I like the Teen Titans. Like, there's really nothing special about me. I'm also a really good investor. So if you want to protect your money and grow it, I'm the guy to call.
Hey.
But yeah, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add about disabilities before I give you a chance to promote yourself, or not promote yourself, or promote somebody else.
It doesn't. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, honestly, I mean, I have a lot of people, but yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. You have a comic audience. I am probably gonna be, and this is kind of a little bit in that area. Um, is the which when I have more space, I can get more into it. But my sumo girl thing that is it's part of the Supersonic Pod Comics universe. That is like, it's basically like comics for your ears with sound effects and actors and all this different stuff. But that character is very anime-ish, very manga-ish, and she has like severe autoimmune issues, and her dad makes her this like super duper suit, bubble suit thing that can kind of like help sustain her so she can actually go outside and be able to finally leave the house and stuff. And um but that we're probably going to be getting up on what's it called, Webtoons, pretty soon. We'll start putting up some of those pages. We got about like kind of half of the comic worth done, and just see if people like it or not. But we deal with a little bit of disabled stuff in that, just because she has a very severe condition, and kind of dealing with that, and at least talking about it, and talking and kind of the different issues and the things that she has to like worry about. But in kind of more of a fun way. She's just like this. I mean, like a lot of characters are in anime, where she's just like this force of like positivity and joy and happiness and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. I like her a lot because she's I think she's a good example for people that and I've known a lot of people, like you said, people with severe issues and severe disabilities and stuff that have every right to be the biggest jerks in the world, and they're really sweet, nice people.
Yeah. No. It's important, and obviously that's going to be coming out, and that's going to be fun to read. And obviously, again, you're going to test the market, and that's the whole thing. And we only need one, guys. We only need one of these books to win.
Yeah,
we need all of them. We need one.
Yeah. Well, and that's where you get the opportunities too for your other things to get, Marvel's attention, DC's attention, or whatever. But because I would like, I mean, honestly, I shouldn't even say this on here, but I mean, I've told some of my other friends, like, I've pretty much given up on writing for Marvel or DC. It would pretty much have to be a miracle for me to get in there, just because of what I can do and how I can get to them. But like, you never know. And depends on if it hits right with different people, different editors, or whoever. I mean, and a lot of them actually, I have heard a lot of editors and other people that are looking for talent with art or writing stuff, that's specifically why they read indies on Comixology, is because they want to find the new talent out there, or the different stuff.
That's interesting.
So I'm actually going to, I know like Aftershock and a few other ones, like they specifically, like that is like their main recruiting place where they actually, so that's also kind of gotten me like I got to start putting some more of my stuff up on there, and get it into it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a different idea completely when I enter this sector.
Yeah.
My idea is to pretty much monetize it, and run it like where I'm going to make my money is in really nice exclusives, and figuring out how to get my stuff optioned, and make a bunch of exclusives, pretty much option it out. Don't tell anybody I optioned it out, and then get a bunch of exclusives to have it drop, and then move my stuff and run away with the money. That's my plan. But I also come from running an eBay store, and running a indie eBay store and a Sanisco eBay store. So the direction I'm going in the next year to 2 years is actually buying and producing my own variant covers with a bunch of indie titles.
Oh, cool.
So that's my direction, and
Yeah.
with Zenescope artists and building out. And again, I don't want to, because I don't think at some point I'll write a comic, but for me, it's cheaper right now where I could spend 15 to 2 grand on art and printing books, and then turn that 2 grand into 8 very, very efficiently with the right artist. If I print, 150 copies and it's Zenescope-esque, and it might take me 18 months to move it, but you get 3, 4, 5 variants, and now it's all driving traffic. And then I got this thing, and that'll be an advertising market for it, and some other stuff, and then you could wholesale stuff out. And for me, I'm right now following the money, and I'm focusing on the business.
Yeah.
Which I think is smart for me, because I just know what's going to happen, and I also know what's going to happen in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And my objective is to add some zeros to my name.
Hey,
preferably at the back end, not the front end.
You should talk to Zenescope and see if they would be interested in doing some disabled heroes.
I mean, I just had Joe on, and I had Ralph on, and Ralph actually said, "Hey, you want to interview Joe out of the blue?" So I had Joe on about 2 weeks ago. Who was one of the co-founders. So if I have more or less a direct line to Zenescope anytime I want one. I do not want to write for Zenescope right now, because I can make more money selling their books than I can writing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would rather keep my relationship with them on, hey, look, I don't want to work for your company, not because I don't love your company. I love your company. I'm making more money, though, by buying your books and selling your books than I would be as a part of your company.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I'd be not allowed to do that, and I think my business would take a massive hit. I mean, I think my business would take like a 70% hit.
Probably.
If I was writing for them. So I'd rather not lose that money at the moment. But I digress. But where can people find you? Because we've been speaking for almost 2 hours, been occupying your time. Where can people find you? Where can people bother you? Where can people support Benjamin Franklin and kicking the British's ass over and over again?
Yeah, and I actually do have, since I do have the pistol fist stuff, I actually have some leftover, not a lot, but I do have some leftover thing. I actually got, this is really cool, and I do have the metal cover for, which is super sweet, and it's the same people that do it for a lot of the other companies that are out there. But I do have a few different things. Well, I also have my novel that has a new cover on it. And that's actually one I'm pitching as a TV series. But yeah, best places to find me, mainly Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Mostly, I think almost all of them are like at Earls JS, because JS Earls got like everything before I could get to it. So I got stuck with the other stuff. But yeah, if you look that up, and those are honestly the best places to find me. Like we said, I mean, it is really, I do get tired pretty easy nowadays. And but not just the fact that I'm like going to be 53 this year, I think. But it's very difficult to also maintain a website or something too. And some of my different projects and things have their own website. So I like doing one for myself is just crazy. So
I know the feeling, man. I know the feeling, and economic stress is not fun.
Nah. Nope.
So I know the feeling, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to also speak for myself. You got to support indie creators and indie content creators. That's obviously me speaking for you, and I'm speaking for myself. I am completely, independent. I have sponsors. Sometimes I don't have sponsors other times. So when people would like to support this show, I appreciate shares. I appreciate likes. I appreciate engagement. I appreciate introductions to people that I don't know, because that's very helpful. And I also appreciate money. I I have Buy Me a Coffee. So if you find that this show is helpful to you, you find that hey, you're thankful for me interviewing you, you want to advertise on the show, you say, hey, I realize that I got to support some indie content creators here, and we're the lifeblood of everybody, and that you're working your ass off, Andrew. I appreciate that. But support comes in a lot of ways, and it's not just money. And people say, hey, I only support people that I believe in on Kickstarter, so I'm not backing your Kickstarter because I only back Kickstarters that I believe in. And I started calling out bullshit on that, everybody. And I'm gonna be very honest, because guess what? You don't have to back the product that I launched in January, which was funding for this show. But you know what is? If you say, hey, I appreciate your show, man, let me share it out. Because guess what? Sharing it out matters. So support is not just money. It's also sharing things out. It's saying, hey, somebody's got a Kickstarter going on. Boom. Oh, man, really enjoyed this interview. Share it out, because it goes a long way. And it's very, very important, I think, that people realize that, and I'm going to repeat it again, is money is a necessity, and money is appreciated in everything. I'm sure you appreciate money. I appreciate money, and I appreciate donations, buying me a coffee, sending me free shit, guys. But I also appreciate introductions, sharing out the interviews, liking the interviews, subscribing to the YouTube channel, liking the Facebook page, checking me out on Twitter. That stuff means something, and it's really, really appreciated. And if you don't say, hey, look, I don't want to throw you money, man, I don't have anything to send you, somebody, make an introduction to me, for me. Say, hey, Andrew, I got this really cool person. I think it'd be great for your show. Hey, let me see if we can make an introduction. It goes a long way. So that's something that I'm going to just drop there. Also, October 5th, I am launching my comic book investing class. That is not free. I'm looking to keep it as affordable as humanly possible. We're looking at it being 18 to 22 hours. Wow. It is a beast of a class, and it is the fundamentals. And I'm not going to tell you what to invest in, but we're going through research, budgeting, grading, and exits. And yeah, you're going to come out of that class and say, holy shit, I'm in or I'm out. It's one or the other. And you're going to have a fundamental education. It's like a miniature college class, and I'm coming at you intense. I mean, we're 25% done, and it's about 5.5 hours for the first 25% of it. So yeah, it's a beast of a class, and man, there's some stuff in that class that is a blast to teach, and that will change your perspective. And if you're an indie person and you're in indie comics, it will also affect the way you do business. So that's what I got going on. And on that note, my social media is down below. Everybody check it out. It's Pop Anime Comics on all platforms. And I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh, Andrew is the best, I guess. I don't know. No. Final words.
Well, please, Mike Karen, explain.
Candy corn sucks.
All righty then. I'm totally fine with that. That's okay. That's okay. We can't all be right all the time. Well, I don't think I could top that on that ending. So I believe that is a wrap, everybody.